April 30th, 1943, 4:37 a.m. Coast of Huelva, Spain. 37 degrees 15 minutes north, 6 degrees 57 minutes west. A fisherman named Jose Antonio Rey Maria pulls his net through the cold Atlantic waters off the Spanish coast and finds something that will change the course of World War II. It's a body. A man in a British Royal Marines uniform, face down in the water, clearly dead for several days. The corpse wears a life jacket and has a briefcase chained to his wrist, standard security procedure for military couriers carrying classified documents. The man's identification papers, stored in a waterproof pouch, identify him as Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, attached to Combined Operations Headquarters. Jose pulls the body into his boat with the help of his crew, crosses himself, and rows toward shore. Spain is officially neutral in the war, but everyone knows where Spanish sympathies lie. The fascist government of Generalissimo Francisco Franco owes its existence to Hitler's support during the Spanish Civil War. Any British military secrets that wash ashore in Spain will find their way to German intelligence within hours. What Jose doesn't know, what nobody except a handful of British intelligence officers know, is that Major William Martin doesn't exist. Never existed. The body floating in Spanish waters is an elaborate deception. The briefcase contains carefully forged documents, and the entire scenario has been staged by British intelligence in the most audacious con game of World War II. The corpse in Jose's fishing boat is bait in a trap designed to fool Adolf Hitler, to misdirect the German high command, and to save tens of thousands of Allied lives by deceiving the Nazis about where the next major Allied invasion will strike. In a London morgue 3 weeks earlier, a team of British intelligence officers selected this body from unclaimed corpses, dressed it in a Royal Marines uniform, created an entirely fictional identity, complete with love letters and theater ticket stubs, chained a briefcase full of forged military plans to its wrist, and dumped it off the Spanish coast with a prayer that the Germans would find it, believe it, and make strategic decisions based on lies. The operation is codenamed Mincemeat. The objective is to convince Hitler that the Allies will invade Greece and Sardinia when the actual target is Sicily. The method is a dead body carrying fake invasion plans. The stakes are Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily scheduled for July 1943, which will involve 160,000 troops, 3,000 ships, and 4,000 aircraft. If the Germans discover the real invasion target and reinforce Sicily, the invasion could fail catastrophically, killing thousands and potentially extending the war by years. Everything depends on whether German intelligence believes that a corpse floating in Spanish waters is really a British courier who died in a plane crash carrying genuine military secrets. This is the story of Operation Mincemeat, the most successful deception operation in military history. The story of how British intelligence created a fake identity so convincing that Hitler himself believed it. The story of a dead body that became a secret agent, a corpse that changed history, and the intelligence officers who gambled everything on the assumption that the Germans would be fooled by a theatrical production worthy of Shakespeare. The body Jose Maria pulls from the Atlantic is about to speak to Hitler, and everything it says will be a lie. January 1943, Room 13, Admiralty Building, London. The problem: Lieutenant Commander Ewen Montagu sits at his desk in the Naval Intelligence Division, staring at a map of the Mediterranean that displays a problem with no apparent solution. The problem is Sicily. Everyone knows Sicily is the next Allied target, the obvious stepping stone from North Africa into Europe. German intelligence knows it. Hitler knows it. The German High Command is already reinforcing Sicily with additional troops and equipment. When the Allies invade in summer 1943, they'll face a prepared defense that could turn the beaches into slaughterhouses. The solution, Montagu and his colleagues believe, is deception. If they can convince the Germans that Sicily is a diversion, that the real targets are elsewhere, Greece, perhaps, or Sardinia, the Germans might redeploy forces away from Sicily, leaving it vulnerable when the real invasion arrives. But how do you convince an enemy of something that isn't true? How do you plant false information in a way that seems credible rather than obvious deception? Montagu's colleague, Flight Lieutenant Charles Chumley of MI5, has an idea that sounds insane. Use a corpse. Obtain a dead body. Dress it as a military courier equip it with false documents indicating invasion plans, and arrange for the body to wash ashore where German intelligence will find it. The Germans will assume they've gotten lucky, intercepted genuine military secrets through a tragic accident, and will make strategic decisions based on false information. The idea has precedent. During World War I, a British officer in Palestine deliberately left fake documents on a dead horse where Turkish forces would find them. The Turks believed the documents, adjusted their defenses accordingly, and the British exploited the misdirection. But that operation was small-scale and local. What Montagu and Chumley are proposing is strategic deception at the highest level, fooling Hitler himself. The obstacles are enormous. They need a suitable corpse, not easy to obtain in wartime Britain where bodies are tracked and accounted for. They need to create a completely convincing identity with enough personal detail to withstand scrutiny. They need to forge military documents that appear authentic. They need to plant the body somewhere the Germans will find it, but make the discovery appear accidental. And they need to do all of this without anyone on the German side suspecting deception. One mistake, one inconsistent detail, one anachronistic document, one impossible timeline, and the entire operation collapses. Worse, if the Germans realize they're being deceived, they'll know the opposite of the false information must be true. They'll reinforce Sicily even more heavily, and the deception will have backfired catastrophically. Montagu takes the proposal to his superior, Rear Admiral John Godfrey, Director of Naval Intelligence. Godfrey, a hard man to impress, listens to the plan and delivers his verdict. This is either the most brilliant intelligence operation conceived or the most idiotic. Proceed, but if it fails, you'll spend the rest of the war explaining how you wasted resources on theatrical nonsense. Montagu and Chumley proceed. They name their operation Mincemeat, a darkly appropriate code name for an operation involving human remains. February 1943. St. Pancras Mortuary, London. The body. Finding a suitable corpse proves more difficult than anticipated. They need a body that meets specific criteria. Male, approximately 30 to 40 years old. Died recently enough that decomposition can be attributed to time in the water. Died from causes that won't be obvious upon examination. And, critically, unclaimed, with no family to object to the body's use for military purposes. Montagu contacts Coroner Bentley Purchase, explaining that naval intelligence needs a body for an operation he cannot fully describe, but which has been authorized at the highest levels. Purchase understands. Wartime Britain produces many unclaimed bodies. Homeless men, suicides with no known relatives, people who die alone and friendless in a city stressed by years of war. In late January 1943, Purchase identifies a suitable candidate, Glyndwr Michael, a 34-year-old homeless man who died on January 28 after ingesting rat poison containing phosphorus. The cause of death won't be obvious from external examination, and the poison's effects could potentially be mistaken for drowning if examiners don't look too carefully. Michael has no known family. He's alone, unclaimed, and about to become the most important corpse in World War II. Purchase releases the body to naval intelligence with one condition. Michael's true identity must never be revealed. Even in death, the man deserves the dignity of anonymity. Montagu agrees. Glyndwr Michael will be buried under a false name, and his real identity will remain classified for decades. The body is transferred to a military facility where it's refrigerated to slow decomposition. The team has approximately 6 weeks to complete the operation before the body deteriorates beyond usefulness. They begin the most elaborate identity creation in intelligence history. February-March 1943. Creating Major William Martin. The genius of Operation Mincemeat isn't just using a corpse. It's creating an entire fictional human being so detailed, so convincing, so fully realized that German intelligence will never suspect deception. Major William Martin must be real enough to fool trained intelligence analysts who will scrutinize every detail looking for inconsistencies. This requires far more than just a uniform and identification papers. It requires a life, a complete biography with personal details, relationships, quirks, and the accumulated debris of human existence that people carry in their pockets and wallets. Montagu and his team begin building Martin's identity layer by layer. The name, William Martin, is chosen because it's common enough not to stand out, but not so common that German intelligence could easily verify records. They create military service records showing Martin joined the Royal Marines in 1940, received a commission, and was assigned to Combined Operations Headquarters, a real unit planning amphibious assaults. They obtain a genuine Royal Marines uniform and dress the body carefully. The uniform shows appropriate wear, not brand new, but not shabby. They add rank insignia for a major, complete with appropriate medals and decorations for someone of his supposed service history. But the uniform is just the beginning. The team creates an entire wallet full of personal items, a photo of Pam, Martin's fictional fiancée. They recruit a female MI5 officer to pose for the photo. She's attractive but not glamorous, realistically the kind of woman a middle-ranking officer might date. The photo is slightly worn, as if carried frequently and handled with affection. 2 love letters from Pam, written in feminine handwriting on appropriate stationery. The letters mention mundane details. Pam's father doesn't approve of Martin. They're planning to marry soon. She's knitting him a sweater. The letters are affectionate without being overly romantic. Exactly the kind of correspondence a real couple might exchange. One letter mentions that Martin has been so clever with all your plans, a subtle touch suggesting he works with classified material. A receipt for an engagement ring, purchased from a London jeweler. The receipt is dated, appropriately worn, folded as if kept in a wallet for weeks. Theater ticket stubs for a London show dated April 22nd, slightly before Martin's supposed death, establishing a timeline of his last days in London. A letter from Martin's father, gently chiding him about some unpaid bills and offering fatherly advice. The father is fictional, the letter forged, but the tone is perfect, exactly how middle-class British fathers wrote to their sons. An overdraft notice from Lloyd's Bank, showing Martin's account £79 overdrawn. This detail is particularly brilliant. It makes Martin human and flawed. Heroes in fiction never have money problems. Real people frequently do. A bill from Martin's military tailor for a new uniform, still unpaid. Identity papers, including military identification and a naval identity card with an official photograph. The photograph is actually of a British intelligence officer who resembles the corpse after mortuary makeup is applied. They even give Martin a personality quirk. In his wallet are ticket stubs and receipts showing he frequently attended London shows and clubs. He's a social officer, well-liked, perhaps a bit careless about money. Someone people would remember. Someone whose death would be noticed and mourned. The level of detail is extraordinary. Every item in Martin's pockets tells a story. Every document has been aged appropriately, folded, worn, slightly stained. Nothing is crisp or new. Everything looks used, carried, handled by someone living a real life. The crown jewel of the deception is the briefcase chained to Martin's wrist. Inside are documents that appear to be classified military correspondence between senior British officers discussing upcoming operations in the Mediterranean. The documents are masterpieces of forgery, written on appropriate letterhead, signed by real officers whose signatures are precisely copied, marked with correct security classifications. The key document is a letter from Lieutenant General Archibald Nye, Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff, to General Harold Alexander, commanding Allied forces in North Africa. The letter discusses upcoming operations, mentions Sicily only as a cover target, and indicates the real invasions will strike Greece and Sardinia. The letter is written in the formal style senior British officers used, references real people and genuine military concerns, and contains just enough classified information to seem valuable without revealing anything truly secret. Other documents in the briefcase support the deception. Letters of introduction for Martin to various commands, requisition forms, routine military correspondence. Everything is designed to appear like the working papers a staff officer might carry between. Headquarters, April 1943. The submarine HMS Seraph. The delivery. The final challenge is delivering Major Martin to his destination in a way that appears accidental. They need the body to wash ashore on the Spanish coast near WWII, a location chosen because German intelligence has a strong presence there and Spanish officials are known to cooperate with German agents. But how do you make a body appear to have died in a plane crash at sea? The Atlantic is vast. Bodies don't just appear where you want them. The tides, currents, and decomposition rates must all be calculated precisely. Drop the body too far offshore, and it might never reach land. Too close, and it appears suspicious. The body must seem to have been in the water for days, not hours. They choose HMS Seraph, a submarine commanded by Lieutenant Norman Jewell, for the delivery mission. Jewell is told only that he's transporting a body for a highly classified intelligence operation. He doesn't know the full scope of Operation Mincemeat. Operational security demands compartmentalization. On April 19, 1943, Glyndwr Michael's body, now fully transformed into Major William Martin, is placed in a specially designed canister filled with dry ice to preserve it during the submarine voyage. The canister is loaded onto HMS Seraph, which departs from Holy Loch, Scotland, for the Spanish coast. The submarine voyage takes 9 days. The crew knows they're carrying something unusual in the sealed canister, but follows orders not to ask questions. In the close quarters of a submarine, keeping secrets is nearly impossible, but naval discipline holds. Nobody discusses the mysterious cargo. On April 30th at 4:15 a.m., HMS Seraph surfaces 1 mile off the Spanish coast near Huelva. Lieutenant Jewell and a small crew remove the body from the canister. In the pre-dawn darkness, they perform a brief ceremony, a Royal Navy officer reading prayers for the dead. Even though Major Martin is fictional and the corpse is being used for deception, British military tradition demands respect for the dead. They check the body one final time. The uniform is correct. The briefcase is securely chained to the wrist. The life jacket is properly fastened. Everything must appear consistent with an officer who died in a plane crash at sea and drifted for several days before washing ashore. At 4:30 a.m., they lower Major William Martin into the Atlantic. The body floats face down, exactly as a drowned man would. The tide is incoming, which should carry the body towards shore. Lieutenant Jewell watches the body drift away in the darkness, wondering what strange mission he's just accomplished. HMS Seraph submerges and departs for Gibraltar. The operation is now beyond British control. Everything depends on Spanish fishermen finding the body, Spanish officials cooperating with German intelligence, and German analysts believing the deception. 6.5 hours later, Jose Antonio Rey Maria pulls Major Martin from the sea. April 30th to May 1st, 1943. Huelva, Spain. The discovery. Jose and his crew bring the body ashore and immediately report it to local authorities. Spanish naval officers arrive, examine the body, and note the British uniform and the briefcase chained to the wrist. This is clearly a military matter involving a neutral Britain during a war where Spain is officially neutral, but everyone knows where sympathies lie. The Spanish conduct a perfunctory autopsy. The examining doctor notes that the body has been in the water for several days, shows signs of drowning, and carries identification as Major William Martin, Royal Marines. The cause of death is recorded as asphyxiation through immersion in the sea, drowning. The doctor doesn't look closely enough to detect the phosphorus poisoning. Why would he? The explanation is obvious. A British plane crashed, an officer drowned, the body washed ashore. It happens in wartime. The British vice-consul in Huelva, Francis Haselden, is notified. Haselden is actually working with British intelligence and knows that if a British body with classified documents washes ashore, he should report it immediately to London, but not appear too eager to recover the documents. His job is to act like a bureaucrat, concerned about a dead officer, wanting to recover the body for proper burial, but not particularly worried about the briefcase. If he seems too anxious about the documents, Spanish officials might suspect they're important and examine them more carefully. Haselden makes the appropriate notifications and formally requests the body and personal effects be returned to British custody. Then he waits. The Spanish authorities do exactly what British intelligence predicted. They open the briefcase, photograph the documents, and share them with German intelligence. May 1st to 3rd, 1943. German intelligence headquarters, Madrid. The analysis. The documents from Major Martin's briefcase reached the German Abwehr station in Madrid within hours. The station chief, Wilhelm Leisner, operating under the cover name Gustav Lenz, recognizes immediately that he may have stumbled onto something extraordinary. German intelligence has been desperately seeking information about Allied invasion plans. Everyone knows the Allies will attack somewhere in the Mediterranean after their victory in North Africa. But where? Sicily is the obvious choice. It's close to Tunisia, provides airfields to support further operations, and opens the route to Italy. But obvious doesn't mean certain. The Allies might strike elsewhere: Sardinia, Greece, even southern France. And now, seemingly through pure luck, a British courier has drowned and washed ashore with classified documents discussing invasion plans. It seems too good to be true. Leissner's analysts begin scrutinizing the documents with professional paranoia. They check everything: the paper quality, the letterhead authenticity, the signatures, the phrasing, the dates, the security markings. They examine Major Martin's identity papers, his personal effects, his entire fictional biography, looking for inconsistencies. They find none. Every detail checks out. The paper is correct for British military correspondence. The letterhead appears genuine. The signatures match known samples. The writing style is consistent with British military protocols. The personal effects, love letters, theater tickets, overdraft notices, are exactly what a real officer would carry. More importantly, the information in the documents makes strategic sense. The letter from General Nye discusses operational security for upcoming invasions, mentions Sicily as a cover target to deceive the Germans, and indicates the real objectives are Greece and Sardinia. This aligns with German strategic assessments, showing that invading Greece would threaten Balkan oil supplies and force Germany to divert forces from other fronts. There's one detail that seems particularly convincing. The documents include a personal letter from Admiral Louis Mountbatten introducing Martin to Admiral Andrew Cunningham in North Africa. This letter mentions operational details, but also includes personal gossip and friendly insults between senior officers. Exactly the kind of informal correspondence that wouldn't appear in forged documents designed for enemy consumption. The analysts debate whether this could be a deception. The timing seems suspicious. Why would a courier carrying such sensitive documents die in a plane crash exactly where German intelligence could find them? But the alternatives seem more implausible. Creating such elaborate documentation with so many personal details would require enormous resources and risk exposure at dozens of points. And for what? To protect Sicily, which the Allies know the Germans already expect to be the target? The German analysts conclude that the documents are genuine. The British got unlucky. A courier plane crashed. A body washed ashore. Germany has intercepted authentic Allied invasion plans through fortuitous accident. On May 9, 1943, the German High Command in Berlin receives a full intelligence report on the Martin documents with the assessment: authenticity beyond doubt. May 9th to 14th, 1943. Führer headquarters, Rassenburg, East Prussia. Hitler believes. The intelligence report reaches Adolf Hitler's desk on May 12, 1943. Hitler reads the documents translated from English and makes the strategic decision that British intelligence has been praying for. He believes the deception completely. Hitler orders German forces to prepare for Allied invasions of Greece and Sardinia. Sicily is relegated to secondary concern, likely a diversion, as the Martin documents suggested. German reinforcements flow toward Greece. Luftwaffe squadrons are repositioned. Naval forces concentrate in the wrong areas. The German High Command redirects resources based on the Martin documents. The 1st Panzer Division is sent to Greece instead of Sicily. Coastal defenses in Sardinia are strengthened. Minefields are laid protecting Greek beaches. Intelligence resources focus on detecting Allied preparations for the real invasions. On May 14th, Hitler personally signs Directive 47, which references intelligence indicating Greece is the primary Allied objective. The Führer's directive explicitly orders preparations for defending Greece and Sardinia while treating Sicily as a likely diversion. In London, British intelligence intercepts German communications showing that their deception is working. Ultra decrypts, intelligence from broken German Enigma codes, reveal that the Germans have swallowed the bait. Messages reference the Martin documents, discuss defensive preparations for Greece, and indicate Sicily has been downgraded as a threat. Montagu receives confirmation on May 14th through an ultra-decrypt that quotes a German message. The authenticity of the captured documents is beyond doubt. He shows the decrypt to his colleague Chumley, and both men experience a moment of profound relief mixed with disbelief. They actually pulled it off. A dead body convinced Adolf Hitler. July 10th, 1943. Operation Husky. Sicily invaded. The Allied invasion of Sicily begins at 2:45 a.m. on July 10th, 1943. It's the largest amphibious operation attempted to that date, larger than anything attempted in the Pacific, a preview of the even larger invasion of France that will come 1 year later. 160,000 troops from American, British, and Canadian forces assault the southern coast of Sicily. 3,000 ships participate. 4,000 aircraft provide air cover. The invasion beaches stretch for 150 kilometers. The Allies expect fierce resistance. Sicily's strategic importance means it should be heavily defended. Intelligence estimates predict 30,000 to 40,000 casualties during the initial assault. Instead, the invasion encounters surprisingly light resistance. German forces in Sicily are undermanned and under-equipped. The reinforcements Hitler sent to Greece aren't available. The Panzer Division that could have made the beaches a slaughterhouse is 800 miles away defending against an invasion that will never come. Allied forces suffer approximately 5,000 casualties during the Sicily campaign, a tragic number but far below the predicted losses. Military historians would later conclude that Operation Mincemeat saved thousands of lives by misdirecting German defenses. Sicily falls to Allied forces on August 17th after 38 days of fighting. The invasion opens the route to Italy, forces Mussolini from power, and demonstrates that Allied forces can conduct successful amphibious operations against defended coasts, vital experience for the eventual invasion of France. And it all began with a dead body in the water off Spain. May 4th, 1943. Huelva, Spain. Burial with honors. While German intelligence was analyzing the documents and Hitler was redirecting his armies, the body of Major William Martin received a proper military burial. British Vice-Consul Haselden arranged for Martin to be buried in Huelva's San Marcos Cemetery with full military honors. Spanish military forces provided honor guard. A Catholic priest conducted the service. The gravestone reads, William Martin, born March 29, 1907, died April 24, 1943, beloved son of John Glyndwr Martin and the late Antonia Martin of Cardiff, Wales. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and proper to die for one's country. Every detail of the gravestone is fiction. William Martin was born in a London mortuary. John Glyndwr Martin never existed. But the grave looks real, feels real, serves as a memorial to an officer who died serving his country. Spanish officials who attended the funeral, German intelligence agents who undoubtedly checked the grave afterward. Everyone who sees the headstone has no reason to doubt that Major William Martin was a real person who died a real death. British intelligence maintains the fiction even in death. If the grave looked fake or hastily prepared, it might raise suspicions. So they give Major Martin the funeral a real officer would receive. Glyndwr Michael, the homeless man whose body became the most important corpse in World War II, lies in that Spanish grave under a false name, honored for an act of service he never consciously performed. His true identity remains classified until 1996, when British intelligence finally reveals that Major Martin was actually an unknown civilian whose body was borrowed for the war effort. 1945 to 1953, the secret kept. Operation Mincemeat remains classified throughout the rest of the war and for years afterward. The participants are sworn to secrecy. Montagu, Cholmondeley, and the others involved cannot discuss the operation even as the war ends and they return to civilian life. The challenge is that other intelligence operations might benefit from similar deception techniques. If the Germans learn how they were fooled, they'll recognize the methodology and be alert for future deceptions. The secret must be kept even in victory. This frustrates the participants, particularly Montagu, who believes the operation deserves to be recognized as one of the war's great intelligence victories. But he follows orders and says nothing. In 1950, British intelligence conducts a review and concludes that enough time has passed and enough has changed in intelligence methodology that Operation Mincemeat can be declassified without compromising current operations. They authorize Montagu to write an account for publication. In 1953, Montagu publishes The Man Who Never Was, a detailed account of Operation Mincemeat. The book becomes an international bestseller. It's adapted into a successful film in 1956. The story captivates audiences. The audacity of the plan, the elaborate attention to detail, the successful deception of Hitler himself. But Montagu cannot reveal Glyndwr Michael's identity. That remains classified for another 4 decades. In the book, Montagu refers to the body's origin vaguely, suggesting it was an unclaimed corpse but providing no details. Michael remains anonymous even as Major Martin becomes famous. 1998, the final revelation. In 1996, British intelligence finally declassifies the complete Operation Mincemeat files, including the identity of the body used. Glyndwr Michael's name is revealed publicly for the first time. Researchers discover Michael's tragic story, a homeless man who died from rat poison, alone and forgotten, whose body became an instrument that changed history. Some historians debate the ethics of using Michael's body without consent, though others note that Michael had no family to object and that his inadvertent service saved thousands of lives. In 1998, the gravestone in Welva is modified to include a small additional inscription acknowledging. At the grave contains the remains of Glyndwr Michael, who served his country in an unusual but vital way. The modification is subtle. The gravestone still reads William Martin because Major Martin is who the world knows. But now there's recognition that the body beneath belonged to someone else, someone whose contribution deserves acknowledgement. Operation Mincemeat succeeded beyond its creators' expectations. Not only did Hitler believe the deception, but German forces remained convinced about Allied intentions in Greece for weeks, even after the Sicily invasion began. Some German commanders insisted Sicily was still a diversion and that the real invasion of Greece was coming later. The operation demonstrated that strategic deception could work at the highest levels. It proved that the human tendency to believe what we want to believe, confirmation bias, could be exploited even among trained intelligence analysts. The Germans wanted to believe they'd gotten lucky and intercepted genuine invasion plans, so they interpreted every ambiguous detail in the Martin documents as confirmation rather than questioning the scenario's plausibility. Military historians calculate that Operation Mincemeat reduced Allied casualties during the Sicily invasion by at least 5,000 to 10,000 lives by misdirecting German defenses. Some estimates go higher, arguing that if German forces in Sicily had been properly reinforced, the invasion might have failed entirely, requiring a second assault with even higher casualties. The operation's influence extended beyond Sicily. Allied planners used similar deception techniques for the D-Day invasion of France, creating fictional army groups and phantom invasions to convince Germans that Normandy was a diversion. Those operations succeeded partially because the precedent of Operation Mincemeat had established that bodies and documents could be believed. For Ewen Montagu, who conceived and executed the operation, the success validated his career. He continued working in intelligence through the Cold War, always knowing that his greatest achievement was convincing Adolf Hitler to believe a lie told by a corpse. For Charles Chumley, whose initial idea sparked the operation, the recognition came slowly. His MI5 work remained classified long after Montagu's book appeared. Only decades later did historians fully credit Chumley's contribution. For Glyndwr Michael, the homeless man whose body became Major William Martin, there is no personal legacy except the knowledge, if the dead can know, that his final act mattered. He died alone, forgotten, and impoverished. His body served his country in a way he never imagined and saved lives he never knew existed. The grave in Welva remains, visited by military historians and intelligence professionals who come to pay respects to the man who never was. The gravestone is a memorial to the most successful lie ever told, to the corpse that became a secret agent, to the elaborate fiction that changed reality. Operation Mincemeat succeeded because its creators understood a fundamental truth about deception: lies must be more convincing than truth. The fake Major Martin was more detailed, more complete, more human than many real people. His identity was crafted with such care that German intelligence couldn't find flaws because no flaws existed. Every detail supported every other detail. The love letters confirmed the personalities suggested by the theater tickets. The overdraft notice confirmed the carelessness suggested by unpaid bills. Everything fit. The operation also succeeded because it exploited confirmation bias. The Germans expected Allied invasions in the Mediterranean. They wanted intelligence about invasion targets. When they found Martin's body in documents, they unconsciously looked for reasons to believe the documents were genuine rather than questioning whether the scenario was too convenient. But mostly, Operation Mincemeat succeeded because a small group of British intelligence officers had the audacity to attempt something that seemed impossible. They gambled that they could fool Hitler himself with a dead body and forged letters. They bet that attention to detail could overcome skepticism. They believed that fiction, if crafted carefully enough, could shape reality. They were right. One body, one briefcase, one elaborate lie, and thousands of lives saved because Adolf Hitler believed a story told by a corpse floating in the Atlantic. Major William Martin doesn't exist and never did. But his grave is real, his legacy is real, and the lives he saved were real. Sometimes the most effective weapon in war isn't a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it's a story so convincing that your enemy believes it completely and makes decisions based on fiction rather than fact. That's the genius of Operation Mincemeat. That's the power of the man who never was. And that's why a homeless man named Glyndwr Michael, who died alone in London, lies buried with military honors in Spain as Major William Martin, the corpse who fooled Hitler and changed the course of World War II.